we're going to proclaim and herald our voices and say, Lord, bid me to come beyond the veil. And I only want you to say it if that's what you really want to do. Are we ready? Say, Lord, bid me to come beyond the veil. Close your eyes. Say, Lord, bid me to come beyond the veil. Say, Lord, my desire is to come beyond the veil. Lord, my heart, my mind, my soul, my spirit is longing to be where you are. Say, Lord, bid me to come beyond the veil. And so the Bible says that when he had cried out with a loud voice, he yielded up the ghost. And something happened when he yielded up the ghost. The text says to us, and behold. Behold means look. It says, look, the veil that was in the temple was rent in twine from top to bottom. And then the Bible says that the earth began to quake. There was a shaking. There was a rocking in the earth. Can you imagine the people that were standing around? Oh my God, what is going on? What is happening? Can you imagine the priests that were in the tabernacle, that were there doing their daily duties? They're there and it's shaking. And all of a sudden, the veil that was standing there, the Bible says, was rent in two from top to bottom. And so the question is asked on this Lord's Day, what is it about? What is the significance? What does it really mean that the veil in the temple was rent in half from top to bottom? Does it really have any significance to a 21st century believer? Or was it something that was just significant to the church there in Jerusalem? Should it have any bearings on the way that I live my life from a day-to-day basis? When I take it into account, should it make me be compelled to love a God that died for me? Let's look at it. Within the holy place of the tabernacle, there was an inner room called the Holy of Holies. And this room, the Holy of Holies, was forbidden. The only person that could go in this room was the priest. And mind you, before the priest could go into the room, the priest had to wash and cleanse himself and be found without blemish, without sin. And so that priest could only go once a year. And that once that the priest could go was the time of atonement, the Day of Atonement. And this priest was responsible for paying the price, not only for his sins, but the sins of all of the other people that were gathered there. They had to clean up, and on the Day of Atonement, they would go into the Holy of Holies. And the only way, after they had cleaned up, that they could go in, they had to have a blood sacrifice. without the shedding of blood, there is no remission of sin. And so they had to find the blood of an unspotted lamb, an unspotted goat. It had to be perfect. Everybody say perfect. Perfect. If the blood was not perfect, then the sacrifice was not received. If the priest went in and was not clean, the priest would fall dead. And they would have to pull the priest out with a rope. And so this is the only way anybody could go into the Holy of Holies. Well, what was there that was so important? The presence of God. The Ark of the Covenant was there, kept behind the veil. And why was it kept behind the veil? Because God knew the Adamic nature of man, and God said, they can't get that close to me. I'll be their God, and I'll lead them and I'll guide them, but they can't get that close up on me. Because if I look at them and look in the face of their sins, and it's not through the eyes of some kind of atonement with blood, I'll have to strike them dead. And then when the priest went into the Holy of Holies with the blood, they had to light candles and incense so that it would be cloudy still, so they could not clearly see the presence of God. Are you getting a mental picture here? There was a barrier. The picture of the veil was that of a barrier between man and God. And it was there to show man that the holiness of God could not dare be trifled with. That God's eyes were too pure to look upon the face of sinful man. So the veil was a barrier to make sure that man would not carelessly and irreverently enter into the presence of a holy God. Somebody say, God help. And so the presence of God remained behind the veil. Can you imagine serving a God that you could never get close to? You can't come close, but whatever my laws are, whatever my ordinances are, you must do. Whatever I tell Moses, do it. If you don't, you will be smitten. But can I just get close to you and feel your presence? Can I just get close to you and smell the aroma of your glory? And the answer was no. The Father says, I gotta fix this thing once and for all. There's got to be a way that I can fix it and I can have fellowship with the ones that I created to fellowship with me. Remember, it got all messed up in the garden? There must be a way. And so he, in all of his deity, decides, I'll do it myself. I'll do it myself. I love them just that much. I love Israel just that much. And not only do I love Israel just that much, there's a 21st century church that's coming along behind them, and I love them just that much too. And because I love them and I see them coming, and I know that they're going to need me, I know that they're going to need to be close to me, I'm going to wrap myself in the arms of flesh and do it myself. And so along comes Jesus, God in the flesh. He was 100% God and 100% man. And it's even the temple veil that gives us that revelation. The colors that you see and you look at in the temple veil speak of the fact that Jesus was perfect, but yet still human. It is the color blue that represents the fact that he came from the sky. He came from on high. It was not an earthly thing that happened. It is the color red that you see in the veil that says to us that in order to come beyond the veil, there must be a blood sacrifice. And the blood had to be totally and completely unblemished. And there was no ordinary man that could do it. And so we see the blue and we see the red. And then we see the purple. It is the purple that speaks to royalty. And it speaks of deity. And it speaks to the fact that there's only one that's deserving. And if you take, listen to me, a perfect blue and you mix it with a perfect red, you get a perfect purple. And remember, I said to you that Jesus was 100% man and 100% God. There was no other human being that could do it. And so he decides, I'm going to do this. And he comes to earth. And he grows up and he goes through all of the things that he needs to go through to get to this point. And he gets to this point and he suffers and he dies and he rises on the third day and he breaks the veil, which gives us access. Him renting the veil gives us access to the presence of God. He is saying now, I want to be in fellowship with you. I want to be in communion with you. Not only will I allow the priest to come and get in my presence, not only will I allow the pastor to come and get in my presence, not only will I allow the ministers and elders to come and get in my presence, but it's whosoever will, let him come. I'm giving you complete access. And that's something to celebrate. We can celebrate a God that loves us and wants to be in fellowship with us and wants to be in communion with us. And so we be that and we get excited and we open our mouths and somebody say, Lord, bid me